your coffin, my love. Enjoy it.
When Tom Cruise stepped into the role of Lestat in 1994, something strange happened in Hollywood. A casting choice that should have been routine suddenly became a full-blown cultural storm. Journalists circled the production, rumors spread long before filming, and the industry watched with a mix of fascination and disbelief. People weren't just curious, they were genuinely afraid the film might collapse under the weight of its own expectations. What no one could see from the outside was how intense things were behind the scenes. Cruise didn't approach the role like a typical blockbuster lead. He vanished into preparation. He rebuilt his voice, posture, and presence. He spent hours studying the novel line by line and shaping Lestat into something ancient, elegant, and unsettling. Even before the first day of shooting, crew members sensed the energy shifting. This wasn't Tom Cruise, the movie star, anymore. This was someone chasing perfection with unnerving focus. What followed became one of the most fascinating behind-the-scenes journeys of the decade, and the truth is darker, stranger, and far more surprising than the pre-release drama ever suggested. Now here are 20 dark facts about the casting controversy that almost derailed Interview with the Vampire, and how Cruise turned pressure into one of the most unforgettable performances of his career. Fact 1. Anne Rice publicly attacked the casting of Tom Cruise. When Cruise was cast, Anne Rice hated the decision. She said he was no more my Lestat than Edward G. Robinson is Rhett Butler. She thought Cruise was too American, too clean-cut, and lacked the aristocratic decadence the character required. The backlash was instant. Fans flooded Warner Brothers with letters. Entertainment outlets mocked the casting. It became one of the loudest pre-release controversies of the decade. Rice later admitted she was shocked and devastated by the choice.
Why do you do this? I like to do it. I enjoy it.
Fact 2. Then Cruise won her over completely. After seeing the final cut, Anne Rice wrote Tom Cruise a handwritten apology. She also paid for a full-page ad in Variety praising his performance as brilliant. Rice said Cruise captured Lestat's mercurial charm, cruelty, and humor in a way she never expected. The twist is that Cruise never responded publicly. He was gracious behind the scenes, but he quietly kept moving forward, letting the work speak for itself. Fact 3. Tom Cruise studied Anne Rice's Lestat obsessively. Cruise didn't step into the role lightly. He bought multiple copies of Interview with the Vampire, filled them with notes, and studied Lestat's personality traits line by line. He focused on the contradictions that made the character so compelling: charm layered over cruelty, confidence masking loneliness, and a predator's instincts hidden beneath aristocratic manners. A strange detail is that Cruise avoided any camp or theatrical exaggeration. He wanted Lestat to feel ancient, grounded, and unpredictable. This book-driven approach became the foundation of his interpretation and shaped every major performance choice he made. Fact 4. Cruise had to completely rebuild his image. Before Interview, Cruise was known for heroic roles: Top Gun, A Few Good Men, The Firm. Lestat was the opposite. He was cruel, flamboyant, manipulative, and morally corrupt. Studio executives worried that audiences wouldn't accept Cruise in such a dark, sensual role. But Cruise saw the risk as liberation. He wanted to break the clean hero stereotype and prove he could go darker and stranger than anyone expected.
And give you another life. One you could never imagine.
Fact 5. Cruise worked privately with dialect coaches to create Lestat's accent. Cruise worked with multiple dialect coaches to develop a timeless, aristocratic accent. He wanted Lestat to sound European but not tied to any specific region. The goal was an accent that suggested centuries of movement and reinvention. A fascinating detail is that Cruise rejected early voice tests that sounded too British or too French. He wanted something uncanny, familiar but slightly wrong, and that subtle vocal quality became one of his signatures in the film. Fact 6. Cruise's transformation into Lestat marked a turning point for the production. Tom Cruise's physical transformation into Lestat was one of the most striking elements of the entire production. The pale makeup, gold-tinted contact lenses, and flowing blonde wig created a look that was radically different from the all-American image he carried through films like The Firm and Top Gun. Even without dramatic on-set stories, the truth is that his appearance surprised many people involved with the film because it showed how far Cruise had gone to disappear into the role. What made the transformation significant was not a single moment or collective gasp from the crew, but the broader shift in perception it created. Cruise had entered the project under intense scrutiny, with fans and even Anne Rice doubting he could embody the elegant, dangerous, and aristocratic vampire she had created. Yet once the makeup tests and early scenes began, the skepticism quietly faded. His commitment to researching the period, studying the novel in depth, and reshaping his physical presence gradually won over the cast and crew. While the set reaction may not have been a dramatic revelation, Cruise's transformation became a steady, undeniable signal that he was taking Lestat far more seriously than anyone expected. Fact 7. Cruise immersed himself in darkness rather than fighting the studio for it. Instead of battling executives over Lestat's darkness, Cruise focused on building that darkness from within. Public outrage centered on whether he could play the character, not on whether the studio wanted to soften him. To counter the doubts, Cruise immersed himself in period research, studying 18th century France, aristocratic mannerisms, and the physical stillness associated with old world nobility. He also worked on transforming his physical presence, sharpening his features and adopting a colder, more predatory physicality. By the time cameras rolled, the skepticism had already faded. His preparation wasn't about negotiating with the studio. It was about proving to fans and creators that he understood the character's cruelty, charisma, and elegance better than anyone expected. Fact 8. He studied predators to capture Lestat's physicality. Cruise didn't just act the part, he researched it obsessively. He watched footage of big cats, snakes, and birds of prey to understand how a non-human predator moves. He practiced stillness, slow turns, and sudden bursts of motion, treating Lestat's body language as something ancient and animal rather than human. The unsettling detail is that Cruise asked the cinematographer to shoot him from certain angles that emphasized precision rather than emotion. He wanted Lestat to feel unpredictable, almost like a beautiful animal deciding whether to bite. Much of what audiences feel, that mix of attraction and unease, comes from this deliberate, controlled body language work. Fact 9. Cruise avoided sunlight for months to keep Lestat's look. During filming, Cruise reportedly stayed out of direct sunlight almost entirely. He wanted his skin to remain pale enough for makeup to sit properly, and for his veins to show on camera. Since the shoot took place over many months, even small changes in skin tone would have created continuity issues. A fascinating detail is that makeup artists said Cruise's dedication made their job easier. His skin stayed so consistent that they could build the translucent, undead look with far less corrective work. He would often arrive hours early to sit through vein mapping sessions, letting blood drain from his face so artists could trace and enhance natural patterns. It was uncomfortable, but Cruise insisted it helped sell the immortality. Fact 10. Cruise's relationship with Brad Pitt was professional but distant. Despite tabloids claiming the two clashed, the truth is quieter and more interesting. Crew members said Cruise and Pitt weren't hostile, just entirely different in energy and process. Cruise was intense, disciplined, and highly structured. Pitt was more instinctual, loose, and emotionally reactive. Their approaches never collided. They simply ran parallel. The odd detail is that the distance between them actually improved the film. Louis fears and distrusts Lestat, and their minimal off-camera interaction created a natural tension on screen. Pitt later admitted that working opposite Cruise was challenging in a good way, saying Cruise's discipline forced him to sharpen his own performance. Fact 11. Cruise insisted on doing many of his own vampire stunts. Even in the mid-90s, Cruise was already known for doing his own stunt work, and Interview with the Vampire was no exception. He performed several wire-assisted leaps, sudden directional movements, and high-speed turns meant to mimic supernatural reflexes. The stunt team praised his physical control and said he often hit marks more precisely than trained doubles. A deeper detail is that Cruise practiced swinging from harness rigs for hours at a time so his movements would look smooth rather than mechanical. He didn't want Lestat to appear like a typical movie monster. He wanted him to glide, pivot, and strike with a level of grace that suggested centuries of predatory refinement. The end result helped redefine how vampires moved on screen for the next decade. Fact 12. Cruise delivered a colder, more controlled performance than expected. Many fans assumed Tom Cruise might inject charm or humor into Lestat, but his actual approach was far more restrained and calculated. Cruise recognized that Lestat's power came from confidence and unpredictability, not flamboyance. He approached the character with icy discipline, controlling his posture, speech, and movement so that every moment on screen felt deliberate. Critics later noticed that his Lestat was surprisingly subtle, choosing precision over theatricality. The interesting truth is that director Neil Jordan did not ask Cruise to soften or lighten the role. Instead, he encouraged Cruise to lean into Lestat's elegance, intelligence, and cruelty without tipping into caricature. Cruise's performance is layered not because of humor, but because of the contrast he created between calm refinement and sudden violence. This controlled, almost aristocratic restraint became one of the defining elements of his portrayal and is one of the reasons so many critics later admitted that Cruise exceeded expectations. Fact 13. Cruise was kind and supportive toward Kirsten Dunst. The idea that Tom Cruise kept his distance from Kirsten Dunst is not accurate. According to Dunst, Cruise was warm, encouraging, and protective throughout filming. She said he rooted for her from the audition stage, even showing her how to make herself look smaller in his arms so she fit the childlike physicality the role required. Both Cruise and Brad Pitt treated her like a little sister and helped her feel safe on an intense adult set. Dunst later said she felt very supported and very loved while working with the two stars, even though the on-screen relationship between Lestat and Claudia is deeply unsettling. The contrast between the warmth behind the scenes and the tension on camera highlights how seriously Cruise took his responsibility working alongside a young actress in such a dark, emotionally charged story. Fact 14. Cruise prepared with his signature precision. The rumor that Cruise rehearsed scenes using only eye lines isn't supported by verified sources, but his preparation was still unusually intense. For Lestat, Cruise read all of Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles to understand the broader world and psychological layers behind the character. He also lost weight for the role, learned piano for a musical scene, and trained extensively to speak naturally while wearing fanged prosthetics. Director Neil Jordan said Cruise brought a cold, disciplined control to Lestat, capturing the vampire's elegance without slipping into parody. His preparation blended research, physical refinement, and emotional restraint, a mix that helped him deliver one of the most transformative performances of his early career. Fact 15. Cruise's precision became part of his on-set reputation. The claim that Cruise delivered identical takes can't be confirmed, but it aligns with his reputation for control and discipline. What is verifiable is that Cruise approached each scene with almost technical consistency. He came prepared, stayed locked into performance mode, and hit marks with a level of accuracy that editors often praised. His consistency gave Lestat a supernatural stillness that made the character feel composed even in violent moments. While the identical takes anecdote may be exaggerated, the underlying truth is that Cruise's discipline shaped the tone and precision of the final performance. Fact 16. Cruise requested extra time alone with the source material before filming. Cruise requested 2 full weeks away from set before filming began so he could reread Interview with the Vampire in isolation and refine his performance notes. He approached the novel almost academically, charting emotional beats, subtle shifts in Lestat's personality, and connections between scenes. A deeper detail is that he used this time to build a private Lestat behavior map, noting how the vampire's confidence, movement, charm, and cruelty fluctuated across the story. These notes weren't improvisations. They were structured tools Cruise used to stay consistent through the shoot. Fact 17. Cruise's arrival changed the entire production tone. Before Cruise boarded the film, the production had a quieter atmosphere built around Pitt's introspective performance and Jordan's moody pacing. When Cruise arrived in full character mode, the energy shifted completely. Crew members said the set suddenly felt more charged, more focused, and noticeably more intense. Everyone responded to his work ethic. The cast and crew started arriving earlier, rehearsing more thoroughly, and taking the project even more seriously than before. The unexpected detail is that Cruise's presence pushed the visual and performance standards higher. Jordan said that once he saw Cruise fully transformed, he realized the film could take on a grander, more operatic tone. Cruise's commitment gave the project permission to be bigger, bolder, and stranger than originally planned. In many ways, Cruise shaped the final film as much as any director's choice. Fact 18. Cruise put A-list star power behind a rare big-budget vampire epic. Before Interview with the Vampire, most vampire films were low-budget, niche horror releases. They rarely carried major stars, elaborate sets, or prestige positioning. That changed the moment Tom Cruise signed on. His involvement shifted the project from a genre gamble into a major studio event. Warner Brothers immediately expanded the budget, upgraded production design, and marketed the movie as a serious dramatic adaptation rather than a cult horror flick. The interesting part is how Cruise's presence redefined what a vampire story could be in the mainstream. Instead of camp or cheap scares, the studio embraced lush gothic visuals, period authenticity, and emotional depth. Cruise treated Lestat with the same discipline he brought to courtroom dramas and action blockbusters, anchoring the film with precision and intensity. His star power legitimized the project in an era when supernatural films rarely received that level of attention. That choice helped open the door for later big-budget vampire projects and proved that dark, stylized supernatural stories could carry both critical weight and serious box office. Fact 19. Cruise maintained an unbroken cold confidence as Lestat. Tom Cruise never slipped out of Lestat's controlled, predatory composure on set. He did not stay in character, but he stayed locked into the physical discipline that defined the role. Crew members said Cruise walked across the set like someone who had lived for centuries, slow, poised, and without wasted movement. There was no rushing, no nervous chatter, no energy break between takes. That consistent physical control kept him connected to Lestat's ancient, unreadable confidence. This discipline created a powerful advantage in the editing room. Cruise's movements and emotional temperature stayed so steady from shot to shot that it gave the character a supernatural continuity. Editor Joke Van Wyck later noticed how unusually smooth Cruise's performance was cut together because Lestat never flickered. That icy composure became one of the defining elements of the film and remains one of the reasons many critics now call his portrayal one of the most controlled and magnetic performances of his career. Fact 20. Cruise never broke the cold confidence that defined Lestat. Even when cameras stopped rolling, Cruise held on to Lestat's poise. He did not talk like Lestat or behave in character, but he maintained the physical discipline, stillness, and quiet confidence that helped him stay connected to the role. Crew members often said Cruise walked across set like someone who had lived 100 years. There was no rushing, no wasted motion, no friendly chatter between intense scenes. He held the emotional temperature of Lestat even outside the shots. The cinematic detail is that this consistency made editing far easier. Cruise's subtle emotional continuity gave Lestat a calm menace that felt supernatural. Jordan later said that Cruise delivered one of the most controlled performances he had ever directed, with a presence that never flickered. Bonus fact: Cruise's Lestat became the version that redefined the character. Anne Rice originally imagined someone completely different in the role, yet Cruise's performance ended up reshaping the cultural understanding of Lestat. Even fans who once hated the casting admitted that his mix of elegance, cruelty, and charm captured a new dimension of the character. After the film's release, sales of the novel surged dramatically, and many new readers said they pictured Cruise while reading. The unexpected twist is that Rice eventually said Cruise's portrayal unlocked a darker, more theatrical side of Lestat that she had not fully understood until she saw him on screen. Cruise did not just play Lestat, he permanently altered the character's legacy across books, film, and television. His performance became the reference point for every Lestat interpretation that followed. Tom Cruise entered Interview with the Vampire surrounded by doubt, controversy, and fierce criticism. Instead of collapsing under that pressure, he transformed it into fuel. He rebuilt the character from the inside out, honoring the novel, challenging the studio, and surprising the very people who once doubted him. His performance became a benchmark for modern Gothic cinema and turned a potential disaster into a dark, enduring classic. As we look back at the strange shadows behind his casting, one thing becomes clear. Some roles are not chosen. They claim the actor. Cruise stepped into Lestat's world with precision and fearlessness, and he left behind a performance that still glows like candlelight in a haunted room. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the darker truths behind the casting, make sure to subscribe for more hidden stories, production secrets, and strange film facts from the movies we cannot stop thinking about. The night is long, and more legends are waiting. If you want more strange and fascinating movie stories, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss the next deep dive. This is Strange Flick Facts, where we uncover the bizarre truths behind your favorite films.